It's Monday night and therefore we welcome you to the Club UK and Ireland Skip Barber Racing School Championship from Summit Point Raceway. After going to the longest track of the season just 1 week ago, we now head on to the shortest of the season as Will Vincent joined by Rachel Whiteford here on RaceSpotTV. And Rachel, this is one very quick but short track.
Absolutely, Will. It's a tiny little track and one pretty much everybody here is familiar with. Not the shortest though, got to correct you there, that would be Lime Rock Park, another track this series goes to. But Summit Point is definitely a little bit more challenging than Lime Rock. Some twisty corners, fast straights. It's going to be a fun one tonight, Will.
It is going to be a fun one as we have got ourselves drivers right now just working themselves onto the racetrack for the conclusion of practice. That's what I was looking for there. Practice is underway as we speak. Then after that we'll have, of course, ourselves a little bit of qualifying. Qualifying is a little bit different compared to what we are used to, Rachel. It's going to be today a solo qualifying. Drivers getting themselves 4 laps, 10 minutes to get the job done.
Yeah, that could be a good thing here. Well, obviously that big main straight can earn you a lot of time, get some teammates together, bit of drafting, and that could drastically affect matters. So you should really see individual drivers' pace coming to the fore with this setup.
So right now in practice it is Simon Povey who's leading the way, Tom Ward second, Sebastian Job in third, Paul Grillo in fourth, Richard Avery rounding out your top 5. You can see along the top of your screen 1 minute and change remaining on the play clock. And Rachel, you talked about that front straightaway. Turn 9 all the way through to turn 1 is incredibly fast. Turn 10 is really going to be the critical corner in this race. We could well have a drag race to the start-finish line to conclude this race.
Absolutely, in fact I expect it. I mean, that corner 10, it's a fast right-hander, it's on the edge of the car's grip. If you stood on the apex of that corner and pushed one of these cars, they'd spin out. They're that close to the edge, and if they don't get that right, that screws up the rest of the lap, Will.
So then you can see 30 seconds left round remaining on the play clock for practice. Guys got themselves, I don't know, about half a lap or so really to do on the racetrack, having a very quick look with Richard Avery in the number 20 car. We'll cycle that view around that you can see from the rear of him. That is the view from his front, working himself through that very technically tricky turn 5, 6, 7, 8 complex, Rachel, which is actually a lot harder than it looks.
It definitely is, but it's definitely one of the most enjoyable parts for the driver because the car's switching back and forwards, different directions, tough, very easy to make mistakes, especially with this car rear-engined and rear-wheel drive. You can lose it so easily, but it's a lot of fun to get it right.
So then, practice is over. These drivers will now head on to the racetrack for qualifying. They will have 4 laps in total, and we will get qualifying times up on the side of your screen as the first driver out on track is Mr. Stuart Adcock in the number 52 car. And it's a different type of qualifying, Rachel, and that really does put the pressure on the drivers because they haven't got anyone to work with. They haven't got any reference points. It's just them alone in the car.
Absolutely, and like I said earlier, it stops that teamwork in the draft on that start-finish straight, because that can reward you up to half a second, Will. And yeah, exactly, you're on your own, you're sat in the cockpit, it's just you and the track. We are going to see something interesting here, and we'll see a real difference to the previous qualifying sessions for the series. It's always been pack qualifying, it's always been multi-car, you've had fast guys and slow guys competing for a lap. Maybe, without that extra drama of traffic, we should see some people come to the fore we haven't seen before.
One person you've got to keep your eye out is this guy, Sebastian Job, because that ARL TV car has been very good all season long, Rachel. He's had a couple of off races not doing as good potentially as he could have done, but now that 13 car surely has got to be one to watch, especially in qualifying.
Well, Sebastian's always one to watch, Will, so looking forward to good things from him.
So we'll ride along board with Sebastian Job then as he works himself out the final corner to start the first one of his laps. All over the curb there on turn number 10, but nicely, almost actually clipping the grass on that run down in towards turn number 1. Longest straightaway on the racetrack, getting yourself up to over 120 miles an hour. Brake at the free marker down towards turn number 1. It's a tricky right-hander here. It really opens up, though, on corner exit, Rachel.
Yeah, definitely. Getting out of this corner fast is really important to the lap. Round the kink here in turn 2, or what they call turn 2, and round into 3. This is fast. It's very easy to lose the back end, and the car will drift out, as he nearly does there.
Yeah, right.
Got a bit of a kink here for 4.
Yeah, that right-hand kink for 4 actually is a lot more difficult than it looks on paper. That back end again can slide out. Job just keeping it calm as he works himself now into 5. And there is that technical section that he's coming up to now, Rachel. Yeah,
that turn 5 is the worst corner on the track, especially for me. It's fast, but it's also very easy to overshoot. Yeah, this fast section here, he's throwing the car right onto those curbs, using them almost to help turn the car. Under throttle, this thing's very understeery, whereas as soon as you lift off, it really wants to oversteer, so he's using those curbs to help get that car through there faster.
And he actually blipped the throttle through turn number 8. He was actually right on the limit of his gearing. Coming down into turn number 10, once again, he'll run that curb on the outside line. We can run all 4 wheels off there, just don't get it onto the gravel. Sebastian Job will come past the start-finish line. He'll put one of our first times up on the board. Sebastian Job does a 121.791, but there we are. Pole position for him for the time being. Jeffrey and Brennan now goes to the top of the time charts by 12 one-thousandths of a second, Rachel.
It's going to be this close, Will. These guys are all very, very fast, and whilst Job's never been Mr. Qualifying, we can expect him to be up there during the race. He's been here all season, and he always does it. So, he might not be on that top step in qualifying, guys, but don't let it deceive you. Sebastian Job can get it done.
Simon Povey currently sat now at the top of your charts with Paul Grillo in second place right now. So, bit of a gap eking out front. Povey got himself a 2/100th of a second advantage over Grillo. Grillo himself 1/10 of a second faster than Brennan. Job running in 4th place. Tim Adcock running in 5. But those top 4 are currently in a class of their own. But still, these guys have got 3 more laps to go. Those tyres would have been warmed up now. So the back end sliding out that we saw for some of these drivers on lap number 1 might have settled itself down. But Povey there very loose through turn number 5.
Yeah, definitely, and it's nice to see Paul Grillo back on track. He's not been around for a while, but he's normally there up front. He's one of those contenders every week, so should be interesting to see what he can pull off during the race. Well,
Simon Povey riding along board with him then as he works himself towards the conclusion of his second lap here at Summit Point. Back down into turn number 10 we go, and it's Dominic Brennan who once again goes to the top of the timing seats. You see it on the left hand side and the top of your screen. Will Povey be able to improve? His last lap was a 21.6. This time it's 21.656. He does not go fastest. Richard Avery now is leading the way, Rachel.
Yeah, brilliant lap there from Richard Avery. Really, really hooked it all together. Although as we can see, these top guys, they're only separated by 2/10. It's just going to be whoever gets that favourable lap, Will.
Lap 3 for Richard Avery then as we ride along board with him through that kink in turn number 3. That back end really stepping out for him, but now he'll run it down towards turn 4, that right hand kink, and then turn number 5. Now these guys, they are prepared to do all 4 laps. Well, the looks of it, Avery still is pushing strong. Now he's got that banker lap in, Rachel. He really can try and frost it on these last couple of laps.
Yeah, hopefully he can really push this one and move himself up that timing table, Will.
As we're having a look then through that midfield section once again for Richard Avery. Now he'll work himself through turn number 8 one more time. He will see the white flag for qualifying this time by. It's currently Avery from Grillo, from Brennan, from Povey, from Lambert. And now Job goes back to the top of the timing standings. So Job on his 3rd lap goes to the top. Richard Avery, will he be able to respond as he works himself through that final corner? He needs to do a 1:21.385 or better to get himself back to pole position. It is going to be mighty close to 1:22.9 to not that time for Avery, but he'll have 1 more lap to try and get that job done, Rachel. Job now is your leader.
Absolutely, well, and as we saw from practice, Mr. Povey was our fastest, going not 1/10 but 3/10 faster than the current pole. So I think we should expect to see some improvement.
Of course, you will have the draft in practice conditions that you won't have here in qualifications, as we're having a look there at Sebastian Job. He has got himself now just a couple of corners left to go. He has seen the white flag. This will be his final lap. Right along board with him, all sorts of Car snapping loose on him as he works himself through turn 8 and turn 9. Wide there in turn number 9. That won't hurt him too much. The curbs are low on that section of the racetrack. One more corner to go for Sebastian Job. Will he be able to hold on to pole position? He works himself out of that final corner. Will he be able to keep it on pole? He runs very wide there out the final corner. I don't think he will improve his time at 1:31.354. He does just improve. Avery, what is happening to him? There you see him. He's down towards the end of the lap. One more corner left to go for Richard Avery. He's now got a target of 1:21.354 to beat. He works himself out of that final corner towards the start finish line. Avery is not going to do it here.
No, but it's very close to these guys, and that's brilliant lap still from Richard Avery, but Sebastian Job seems to be on his own today.
Yep, Grillo has completed his run, so no faster for him. He will be in third position, 1:21.522, his final lap of qualifications. We still got George Lambert. He's just finished the lap, moving himself into the 7th place on the racetrack. A couple of people towards the rear of the field, still on laps. We've got Tom Ward just coming past the start-finish line now. Let's see where this puts him. 1:21.776, currently he's classified in the 15th place in qualifications. A little bit of work to do now, Ward does on this final lap of qualifying for him. So Ward works himself out of turn 2, down towards that kink, that left-hand kink for turn number 3 once again. As he's not doing badly so far on this lap. Got a couple of people still circulating on the racetrack, turning laps. You have actually got, by our watch, Richard Avery has, by our watch, got one more chance to go. We'll keep an eye out on him then. Working himself out of that final corner. Very, very tight on the curb there. But he will work himself now towards that start-finish line. This will not improve his time. A 1:21.557. He remained in that second place, Rachel. And that, for me, it was all down to what happened in that final corner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got to use as much of that track as you can in the final corner here at Summit Point, but perhaps not quite the right amount of track used.
Let's have a look then. We'll see if we can slow it down. Coming into the corner, you can just see that he uses a little bit too much of that curb, and unfortunately, Richard Avery, I think that was the difference maker for him here today. Tom Ward, you say, he has just completed his lap, and he will move himself up into 15th place overall. You got Daniel Hunt still scored on the racetrack, very wide there at that final corner. That will cost him as he's trying to move himself up the field. Daniel Hunt doesn't get a lot of time to lap there, running a little bit too wide. Now we've just got Neil Goodacre, the last driver, classified on a run, and it's going to be 28th place for him. And Rachel, that rounds out our qualifying.
And a brilliantly tight qualifying we've had there, Will. Some really, really fast guys trading lap times, and I think this is going to translate into a brilliant race.
So then, let's run through your starting grid for today's event. And starting today's race on pole position will be Sebastian Job. Qualifying time of 1:21.354. Richard Avery will start alongside him on that front run, just 1.6 seconds back. Paul Grillo in third, Simon Povey alongside him in the second row of the grid. Then Dominic Brennan in row 3 with Clark Williams alongside him. George Lambert and Tim Adcock in row 4. Mark Jarvis, Stuart Adcock in row 5. Rich Jones, Mark O'Connell in row 6. Rob Green, Alan Jeffrey in row number 7. Tom Ward and Clive Armstrong in row number 8 with Fahim Atanides and Brendan O'Brien in row 9. Robert Plumley and Alan Patterson rounding out your top 10 rows. Rest of qualifying times coming up on your screen. Who is going to win it here today, Rachel?
Well, we've seen some brilliant driving from Sebastian Job this season, and he's had some mistakes, but he's always had that pace. Richard Avery, though, he's always up there, so I think we've got to say my money's on Richard Avery.
As we're having a look high above here at Summit Point Raceway. There you see your pole position driver for today. It will be the one and only Sebastian Job as we get set to go racing here at Summit Point Raceway here on RaceSpotTV. Of course, your home for the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. The final round of that will take place this Saturday live on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live from Circuit of the Americas. Cars just finishing their gridding process right now as we are getting set to go racing. There you see your first couple of rows here as we've got ourselves what I think will be a very interesting race here today. Will it be Job who's going to win this? Will Avery be able to use that draft? It could well come down to that final corner. 19 laps of racing here on RaceSpotTV will start right now. Good start there by Job from pole position. He will get that draft down in towards turn number 1. Very good start though by Grillo in that number 27 car as they work themselves down in towards turn number 1 for the first time. There you see on board with Job, and here you see these cars all storming down into that first corner. Looks as though Avery's going to look around the outside, but then you've got Grillo almost trying to make that move on the inside. 2 by 2 as they work themselves for that first couple of corners. But Rachel, thankfully it looks like your top 10 rows are through without incident.
Definitely will, but I think we had a car stalled on the grid. I can't exactly work out who that is right now, but someone had to take some serious avoiding action there off the line.
We will get ourselves a replay of that in a little moment's time, but you can see out front, Job, Avery, pressure situation there, and it is Job who does still lead the way. So they work themselves now down into the technical section for the first time. There you see your top 4 rows as they work themselves through that section of the racetrack. We'll zoom it out, and there you can see they are all line astern. But now, Rachel, this is when that slipstream, that draft, will come into play.
Absolutely. When cars so close together, turn 1 this lap round is going to be interesting. Much higher speeds into that corner, of course, having completed a full lap. We could see some passing starting very early here, Will. Yeah, riding on board right now with Paul Grillo. Welcome return to the series for him, running in what will be a net 3rd position. We are believing that it was Simon Povey who might have stalled on the grid. As there you can see them flicking past the start-finish line for the first time, and a little bit of side-by-side racing. Here is Adcock, I believe, who's looking down to the inside of P6. That'll be Mark Jarvis, who's trying to make that pass onto down in towards turn number 1. And Stuart Adcock is just going to be able to sweep past and get that move done there, Rachel. But here you see Jarvis is on the attack. They work themselves down into 3. Not just Jarvis, but Richard Avery's now managed to go around the outside of Job in turn 1 and holding the inside line into 3. Can he hold on to it though? No, he's lost that position back. He's given it up rather sensibly. Too hard, too early perhaps. They realise what they need to do. Yeah, there you can see Job. He's got pressure from Avery, but it does look as though that Job is going to remain in the race lead. We have got a car who has brought itself onto pit road. That is why our timing and scoring is just a little bit off sync right now. But Adcock, Brennan, they are running mighty close. As you can see, we're working on board now with Dominic Brennan, Stuart Adcock even right there in the mix. And just ahead of him, he's got Dominic Brennan and George Lambert. They are mighty close on the racetrack. And Rachel, it was close on that opening lap down into turn number 1. And for Job, he's now got all forms of pressure from the rear of Avery. As Avery runs a little bit wide there, that's actually going to allow Grillo the opportunity to try and make that move down into turn number 1. Yeah, definitely will. And Richard Avery's been all over Job from the start of the green flag as he looks down the outside of him again. Going to try that move around the outside. If you can hold it, he again has that shot into 3. Oh, and he runs a little bit wide that time. That's going to allow Grillo the opportunity to try and potentially make a move. There you see, Avery is still on that inside. He will have that line as we'll ride along board with Richard Avery side by side, battle for the race lead. And our camera's pointing the wrong way, and unfortunately, Avery wasn't able to get that move done. 2nd lap in a row, he cannot hold it down into turn number 3, Rachel. It's so hard, Will, to hold a car on the inside there. It's hard to keep one line through that turn if you want to go full speed. Brilliant driving from Avery to hold it in there, but he wisely backs out in time. Tom Ward and Tim Adcock are having a battle. This is at the rear end of your top 10 as it stands right now. But these guys have been really pushing it in these opening couple of laps. Your top 5, it is Job from Avery, from Grillo, from Lambert, from Brennan, and then Adcock, Jarvis. Jarvis, something happened to him? No, he's not. He's still in 7th. Adcock, Ward, and Jones right at your top 10, side by side with Ward and Adcock. This is the battle for the 8th position on the racetrack, and it looks like Ward does make that
that move stick, and a lot of dust being kicked up there on the exit of 10.
Brilliant move there. Little bit twitchy from both of them though on the entry. They weren't quite sure who was going to give who room, but they make it through safely. Great racing, Will.
So Avery, again, he tries to the outside. Again, he's not able to make the move, but now he's going to get himself a much better run out the corner. Grillo is right behind him, however, as they work out the corner there. You can see Paul Grillo trying to potentially pinch Avery down into turn 3. Now, this is the thing, if you show your hand too early in an event like this, Rachel, people will know where your weak is, and here comes Grillo, and he's going to try and look down to the inside in the next corner. He won't have the inside line, but Grillo is really hounding now on Avery, and it does look as though that Grillo isn't quite going to be close enough to make the pass, but then Avery pushes himself a little bit wide, and they are too wide, almost too deep, and Grillo almost makes contact there with Avery.
Yeah, I think Richard Avery's shown his hand a little too early with his moves on Job in turn 1, and Grillo spotted the pattern, and he's definitely going to be trying to make use of that in coming laps.
But what that has done, it has allowed Sebastian Job now a 1.1 second advantage. There you can see Job as they work themselves, and there's confirmation on the gap. It's 1.1 seconds between Job and Avery, and that all happened because Avery's running side by side with Grillo pretty much for 2-3 corners there.
Yeah, fighting in these cars on a track like this is going to cost you so much time. And after all the pressure of the first laps, Job is saying, thank you guys, you keep at it.
As you can see there, Grillo and Avery battling for position, and there's contact there, and they somehow, just somehow, manage to keep it going, but Grillo will have that inside line into the next corner. It does look as though that Grillo will move himself now up into second position, and Avery wisely giving him the position.
Yeah, not much you could do to defend that one, Will. Oh, big snap across there for, I believe that is Dominic Brennan. Narrowly avoiding getting loose.
Yeah, we're going to have a look then at this replay with Avery and Grillo. As you can see, they work themselves side by side, and then Avery just allowing that move to happen, and then Brennan will have a look on board of him. There you can see his car getting wicked loose. We'll keep it on board of him as he works himself down into turn 4 and 5. That back end really just step out on Brennan's race car.
So easy to do in this car, Will. It's such a twitchy little beast, but so much fun to drive. These guys, the speeds they're doing, are doing an amazing job.
So Job does still lead the way as we complete the first 5 laps of today's event. Working himself just underneath the trees. Sebastian Job has led every lap of this race so far. It wasn't easy for him in the early going, but now he's got himself into that groove. He is doing fine, and there you can see again Avery and Grillo side by side. Avery down to the inside. That one just looked completely easy, but Grillo will come back as they work themselves again through turns number 2 and 3 on board with Grillo as they work themselves now down into 3 once again. This is where Avery's been weak down on the inside, but Grillo decides discretion is the better part of valor, and he does just fall back into line there, Rachel. Once again, kicking up a lot of dust for both of these drivers.
Absolutely will, but he's giving George Lambert a sniff up his exhaust pipe right now as Lambert spots the dueling pair.
As also Brennan and Adcock and Ward, they continue to battle for position. Great racing going on throughout your field. Tim Adcock has been involved in the battle of Rob Green since the start of this race as well, riding along board then with Tim Adcock in that number 21 car. And all the way through this field, we've got ourselves some great battles. People who are classified as out of the race: Brendan O'Brien, Peter Newman and Clark Williams, all currently classified as out of today's event, Rachel.
Yeah, 1 or 2 of those I think were in the early line, Will. We had one car, a green car I believe, go very wide on the start. Technical problems possibly for Simon Povey, causing him to miss the start with that stall. So, early going and early losses, but hopefully not going to see much happening on track.
Working on board with Daniel Hunt as he tries to make the move down the inside of that number 99 car, almost pushing him off the racetrack there. Daniel Hunt, he will get back into that slipstream, but you can tell that he is really hounding right now, all the way outside of the top 10, outside the top 15. Hunt will go down to the ultra inside now in towards turn of 1. Will Cohen give him the pass? The answer to that question will be easy pass there made by Daniel Hunt, and in fact it'll be a 2-for-1 offer as Bobby West will also go past him on that run through turn number 2 and 3, Rachel.
Absolutely will, taking advantage of that situation right there.
So Daniel Hunchley running in that 17th position. Out front though, Paul Grillo has been able to get himself a little, and I mean a little bit of a gap, and that is a train behind him. There you can see it is currently Grillo in that second position, Avery in third. Timing and scoring is showing him in the first spot. He is actually in P2. Avery's in the third position, Lambert in fourth, and these guys continue to battle as we're riding from the rear there of Grillo as they work themselves down into 10 once again. Now, interestingly enough, Grillo's last lap, a 121.969. Compare that to Sebastian Job's last lap, a 121.686, 3/10 of a second faster. That is what having clean air is, and not having to defend heavily into some of these big braking zones does for you, Rachel.
That's so true. Well, obviously these guys, even though they might have clean air in front of them, with cars so close behind them, they also have to take into account, will the guy behind me brake where he's meant to brake? They have to go a little bit deeper to avoid just being rear-ended. So just because you got clear out front, not as much of an advantage as being clear front and rear like Sebastian Job.
George Lambert trying making a move there on Richard Avery, was not able to complete the pass. Working ourselves now towards the halfway point of today's event, and there you can see just how tight this pack is as they work themselves down into 5 once again. Your top 10, as we'll get it running along the top of your screen. It's Job from Grillo, from Avery, from Lambert, from Adcock, from Ward, from Brennan, from Jarvis, from Green, from Jones. And there are some still incredible close battles we have as we're having a look on board now with Dominic Brennan. He's at the rear of this train. And of course, this track is still very technical, high-speed corners. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these guys start losing their tyres as we get closer to the second half of today's event, Rachel.
That's definitely true there, Will. And our number 21 car of Tim Adcock is having to fight off a coming charge from Fahim Antonides now, as it looks like Tim's tyres seem to be a little wobbly, causing him to skip a few corners.
Yeah, so we're riding on board with Fahim Antonides, and you can see he's got 2 tenths of a second gap to Adcock ahead of him, but Mark O'Connell just a couple of tenths of a second back, as you can see, just ahead of Fahim. You have side-by-side racing between Adcock and Armstrong, and the two almost make contact there, both sliding simultaneously. Now, Rachel, if that was synchronized swimming, that would be an easy 9 points.
Well, 6 if you're Russia, 9 if you're everybody else. Great mood driving there from those guys. Really kept it apart. You can see that little bit of a twitch when the driver realises they might be a little too close, and they just open that steering, but brilliant awareness from both of them.
As we'll get ourselves one more look of that as we ride themselves down in towards turn number 1. We'll have a look at this one on board then with with Tim Adcock coming down into the corner. We'll get our super slow-mo cam up on this one, and you can just see how close it was between these two drivers. They pretty much had about a foot between them, Rachel. It was mighty close there, but both those drivers get through without any further incident.
Definitely some expert driving going on. So, unfortunately, oh, big kick there from Tim Adcock in turn 10. Yeah. 3 wide, my God.
You've got George Lambert involved in this mix as well. We'll go back and we'll see some of the action going on in just one moment, because Adcock in a 3 wide situation. We'll get that one back up on your screen in 1 moment's time, because Lambert is involved in a great battle as well with Dominic Brennan. Brennan, you can see him there just on the outside. Lambert is going to lose that position, and side by side just ahead of him as well pretty much, Grillo is continuing to fight. In fact, Grillo's lost that position now to both Adcock and Avery. So Grillo is all of a sudden down into the 4th place on the racetrack, Rachel.
Oh yes, but massive tank slapper there from Tom Ward going through turn 3. The fast left-hander almost looks like he's going to lose it completely and drifts. Everyone manages to avoid him. Absolutely spectacular driving there from those guys. There's
a replay then of the 2x2, almost 3 wide situation we had coming down in towards turn number 1. You had Dominic Brennan involved in that, as well as Tim Adcock for Fahim Antonides down into that first corner. You can see mighty close racing. Some of these drivers are catching the curbs there, and it's one of those things, as I believe that was a number 79 car of Rich Jones, indeed it was, who just ran wide in turn 1. That's why he's now down to the 14th position on the racetrack. These guys have been abusing the curbs in the early going. They can't do that as much in the second half of this event.
No, absolutely not. Those tyres, they are starting to wear on them, and the grip they had on that first couple of laps is starting to go away. Lines you could take, speed you could carry, just aren't there anymore, and these guys are having to nurse those cars a little bit.
Adcock able to hold off from Grillo there into turn number 1, and it'll be a bit of strategic placing, I think, in the last couple of laps as well, because you can see that Adcock was up pretty much on the inside of Richard Avery coming down into that first corner. What that did, Rachel, is it blocked that outside line so that you had Grillo having to go around the outside, but he's all over the rear of Adcock right now as they work themselves back down into towards turn number 5. Grillo looks as though he's a man possessed all of a sudden.
I think Grillo's got a taste for that second position and he wants it back sharpish. He is chasing them down all over that gearbox of Stuart Adcock. We'll see what the pressure will do to him.
So these top 4 drivers, Job has a 3.4 second lead. There you can see Sebastian Job. There you can see the gap to Richard Avery. It is huge right now. There is Avery, gap to him and Adcock. Well, that is literally just a couple of tenths of a second. Adcock, there you can see him, just a couple of tenths. And then Grillo, he actually now has a 2.3 second advantage over Dominic Brennan. But we'll ride along board with Grillo once again. His last lap at 1 minute 21.519. That time at 1 minute 21.4. And again, Rachel, you see all of a sudden defensive driving, people picking their lines early. Grillo will try and look on the outside of Adcock this time by. He's been strong on the outside before, but this time it doesn't look as though he's going to be able to make that move through turn number 1.
No, he just wasn't quite close enough alongside him as they entered that corner. He braked a little early because he's on the wider line, but he just close, but no cigar for Paul Grillo.
As they are now actually almost side by side. Our cameras are a little bit deceptive there. Rob Green and Mike Jarvis as well. You can see them. They are mighty closely separated on the racetrack. There you can see just 2 tenths of a second separating them. As you can see 2 packs of drivers. Number 18 car of George Lambert was attempting to go side by side with Ward. He's actually going to try around the outside into 5. That is a very brave play to try and go side by side, Rachel. And as these 3 guys battle, Brennan, Ward and Lambert, it has allowed Jarvis and Green to catch back up into the fray.
Absolutely, and more cars mean more fun for you, the viewer, as these guys are all over each other now.
As we have a look high above, this is your battle then for P5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on the racetrack. As we'll zoom it out, that is how close it is as they work themselves down into the final corner. As they work themselves out of that final corner, a lot of guys really using that gravel now. As we'll zoom it in, as we expect Ward to potentially look to the outside. Will he do so? Oh, he makes contact there. He does make contact with Dominic Brennan down in towards turn number 1. Now coming down into the biggest braking zone on the racetrack after just clipping your front wing. He tries to make it work on the outside. He almost does make it stick, Rachel.
Very, very brave driving there from those guys, and little bit risky perhaps from Tom Ward. Not quite a move I'd have made, but they're holding it together fairly well, it seems.
Yeah, as Tom Ward, they just go behind the trees. We'll go on board there with Ward. He was very lucky to get away with that in that friction racing car as they come down into 5 once again. This is again the battle for P5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on the racetrack. These guys are incredibly close on the racetrack. And to have a look at retiree watch, we haven't really had many more retirees. Just Daniel Hunt, I believe, who's now classified as out of the race, Rachel.
Yep, Daniel Hunt has unfortunately lost it. I think he has solo spin from what I remember seeing on the broadcast, but these guys are really now separating out. You've got little packs of traffic, and it's going to reduce the amount of contact you have.
Grillo just made a beautiful move. They're going to be side by side, and Avery had to come back onto the racetrack. He ran so wide there. That was an easy pass for Grillo, but will Avery try and go back to the outside? He is going to go back to that outside line, and he will have the line into 1. Avery has been strong through 1, but he pretty much loses it there.
Oh, very, very close. Very late move out there to the outside for Richard Avery. I thought he almost literally clipped his wheel with that one, but bit of a stumble. Gives Grillo the head he needs and gives him some room, as looks like Stuart Adcock's could come past as well. Not the best lap there. Oh, they're all on the gravel. Not the best lap there for Richard Avery.
No, as this is Avery going off the racetrack, and then you see him coming back on, and look at the contact you almost had there as they work themselves down the front straightaway, down in towards turn number 1. Now, Avery does try to then make the move back as they come down into that first corner. This is when things start getting really crazy as he just runs it a little bit wide, as you can just see there on your screen. runs it wide. That allows Grillo to pretty much get back past him, and then Brennan has a good run on the exit of the corner as well. Avery, we've seen him so far this season potentially push things just a little bit too far. We've got to ask that question. I think he's doing it again here today.
Well, you know, it's very tough to say what these guys are thinking when they're actually out there on the track. They're all working so hard at the moment, and it's anybody's guess, although I definitely think this is a fight for second place.
As you can see, there's the gap from Avery to your race leader. It's 5.8 seconds on the racetrack, but there's a contact there, big contact with Avery, and that was Paul Grillo. The rear wing of Grillo is all messed up, and that was all started with an incident down into turn number 1. And it does seem to be that Grillo doesn't working on that outside line that much, and then that basically has now allowed Dominic Brennan to just dance off into the sunset for the time being.
Yeah, really contentious little moment there. Whether Grillo was slow into the corner or Avery was late in, I can't quite tell, but Dominic Brennan on the outside did seem to come across a little bit well.
He does, and there we see a replay. We're having a look at this one from on board with Avery. So you'll get a picture view. You can see Grillo down onto the inside, and that's where the contact happened. I do think that the two guys ahead were just fighting for track position. Then Avery actually almost ends up climbing that hill there, down in towards the next corner on the racetrack. And I'm just getting word, actually, I think Richard Avery's now classified as out of the race.
Well, that's not something I've seen just yet, but if he is, that's not very fortunate for him. Probably a result of front wing damage. Yes, I think he is out. But, and Paul Grillo, I believe, as well.
Yeah, so let's have a look. Is this a retaliatory contact? Yes, the two made contact twice, 3 times there. There you can see Avery and Grillo. Now, you've got to ask, was that retaliatory contact between those two drivers there? We'll get ourselves another look from high above, and we'll come down into this corner. Into the complex they come. You see Avery right on the rear. I don't think he actually attempts to make a pass. They come underneath the trees. Unfortunately, we won't get to see it much from that angle. Yeah, huge contact. And then you see other cars involved in that one as well. I believe we had Dominic Brennan involved in that as well. We'll get ourselves one more look from on board Brennan, because I think we're going to get ourselves a really good view of this from him, as the contact will start just ahead of him on your screen there, left hand side of your screen, as they come down into the corner. Right hand corner, you can see the cars all start to swarm to avoid. The track was pretty much blocked. We had those two cars. Brennan had to take onto the grass to make evasive action, but Rachel, I'm always trying to be by and by, but it did look as though that might have been some retaliatory contact there.
Well, I think it actually stems from the initial contact, Will. I mean, Stuart Alcott was on the outside, and he starts to come across to the racing line, shall we say, in turn 1. Now, Paul has to slow down more than he expected for that, because he sees a car coming across the front of him. I don't think Richard Avery can quite see the line there, and Richard Avery doesn't realise he's slowing down, goes into the back of him, accidental contact. But if anything there, Grillo was, apparently from what I've heard over the radio, was blaming Adcock. But it seems that with the rear wing damage he's had, this is Paul Grillo of course, maybe coming out of turn 5 he's had to slow down more because of loss of aero. So again, he's been a little too slow, but I can't see why Avery would want to get revenge for something he caused.
Yes, and again, it could just be us as commentators calling it, as Robert Plumley having a great battle right now. And this is the battle for P10 on the racetrack. Plumley side by side with Jonathan Maycock in the Club 100, number 100 machine. Not able to make that pass, so down in towards turn number 3. They will stay on it for the time being as the cars all the way off the racetrack. Just
there is contact.
I'm just trying to figure out who that one is.
Behind them, Alan Jeffrey, no?
Yes, I believe it might have been. We'll have a look. See if we can get ourselves a replay there, because that was one car just all the way off the racetrack and beyond. And this is down in towards turn number 3. It's not Jeffrey by my look of it. We just had one car just completely go off the racetrack. It might have been Bobby West. No, it wasn't. We'll get confirmation of who that was. It might have actually been a car scored 1 lap down. But Sebastian Job out front, continuing to lead the way, continuing to dominate. 1 lap and a corner left to go now for Job.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute domination in this race. Qualifying, and it's looking like the win. Clean air, Will. It means everything in these cars.
He does, and he's still flicking it. He actually goes wide there in turn number 3. So to say that he's not pushing it despite having a 7.1 second advantage to Stuart Adcock, who's now into second place. Job, really, I don't know if he's having fun with himself right here, or he's deliberately trying to spin that car, because he is pushing it. His last lap, a 1:21.090, his fastest lap of the race, potentially trying to go for an unofficial track record here now.
Absolutely, and rather pushing too hard for a lead of that sort of distance going into the final lap, Will, but certainly a drive worthy of the win. Although he wobbles again, I think he's having some serious tyre problems in that car. I mean, he has pushed so hard so early in this race, and we've seen from Joe before, he's pushed sometimes too hard and made mistakes, but whatever he's doing, it's doing enough to take this win if he can complete one more lap.
Yeah, white flag is out, one more lap to go, 1:21.554 there for Sebastian Job as he starts his final lap of today's event. Behind him, Adcock has got himself a huge gap now over Mark Jarvis. There you can see Adcock, there's confirmation of the time, 9 seconds from Adcock to Jarvis. Jarvis, though, has got Rob Green right behind him, and this is one that I think will be very close, because there you can see the huge concertina of cars, Brennan side by side with Green pretty much. They come down in towards turn number 1, Green having to take evasive action through the centre of the corner. This will now allow Brennan to have a look potentially down to the inside in towards turn 3, Rachel.
Yep, and this is where the battle's going to be on track, Will. There's 3 cars within a second of each other, and I think they want to let each other know about it. This is the final time for them to make that pass and potentially have that final step on the podium. Will it be Mark Jarvis?
Oh, I don't know. It could be Green. I think Green's the one potentially with the best of this chance, but it'll all come down to how they handle these next couple of corners. One wrong move and it will be game over. But meanwhile, Job is working himself down towards the final corner for the final time. It has been a dominant day for Sebastian Job. He works himself out of that final corner for the final time. Big Tampa slapper, it doesn't matter. Sebastian Job is your race winner here at Summit Point. Stuart Adcock will come home to claim second place in today's event. Third place, well, here is Jarvis out of the final corner. Who will it be, Rachel? It does look as though Jarvis will just about hang on.
Brilliant conservation drive there from Mark Jarvis to hold on to that place. Probably didn't expect to be sitting on the final step of the podium, Will, but I think he earned it holding off those 3.
Green comes home in the 4th position. Then Dominic Brennan rounds out your top 5. Clive Armstrong just outside it in P6. Fahim Atenides will get himself a well-deserved 2nd place as he spins it at the start-finish line. Actually, one of the best drives that we've seen from Atenides so far today is one car just flying over our screen. I believe that could have been Robert Plumney.
It could have well been Plummer's flying somewhere, but interesting driving today, Will, and I just want to go back and touch on something from our little analysis of the earlier episode, shall we call it. Obviously, we don't know what's going on in the heads of the drivers. We don't know why these things happen, but we can only commentate on what we see. I think there's more to this one than we have seen, perhaps.
Well, what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take ourselves a 30-second break. We'll come back with final race results here from Summit Point Raceway. You're watching the Club UK and Ireland Skip Barber Championship here on RaceSpotTV. We'll be right back. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to coverage from this Skip Barber Club UK and Ireland Championship here on RaceSpotTV, powered by Antoine Designs. And just a reminder, don't forget the final round of the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series will take place this coming Saturday from the one and only Circuit of the Americas. Coverage will start for that at 1:30 p.m. GMT with qualifying and, of course, the entire race live on both RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. To run then through your final race results, Sebastian Job, it looked easy if you have a look at timing and scoring, but it was a little bit more difficult for him. He had to hold on to some early charges in the early going, but gets himself almost a 7-second advantage as he crosses the start-finish line over Stuart Adcock. Mark Jarvis rounds out your podium, but you look between P3 Mark Jarvis and then P6 Clive Armstrong. The drivers separate at the line by less than 1 second. Rob Green in 4th, Dominic Brennan 5th, Clive Armstrong 6th, Mark O'Connell in 7th place, Rich Jones in 8th, Fahim Atanides in 9th, and then Robert Plumley rounds out your top 10. Onto page 2 of the results. Jonathan Maycock in the 11th position, Alan Jeffrey in 12th, Bobby West in 13th, Peter Cohen in 14th, Chris Simpson 15th, Tom Ward in 16th, Alan Patterson 17th, Tim Adcock 18th, Morier Coote, the last of the drivers to finish in 19th, and then Paul Grillo, the first of your retirees, in 20th. And then Avery will not be happy with that 21st place, same way Grillo will not be happy with P20. Lambert, Goodacre, Daniel Hunt, Clark Williams, Brendan O'Brien, Peter Newman, all classified as not completing the race. And Simon Povey, Rachel, well, he did take the green flag, he just didn't go anywhere.
Absolutely well, and I think, judging by what happened with him, we can only suppose it was a problem with his car or his equipment, because that car didn't even move. Obviously, the people around him managed to luckily avoid the sitting car, but not the best way to start a race when you just go nowhere.
Let's then go back, shall we? What do you think happened? Was it retaliatory drivery, or am I just being perhaps too hard on these drivers?
A little cynical there, Will, in your old age.
I think I am, aren't I?
Yeah, no, I've been back and watched it myself, and I watched it a few times during our break. Now, what I didn't think I saw the first time round was the front of Richard Avery's car. Yeah, we thought he had front wing damage. He had no front wing on my cameras. So both of them experiencing aero problems. And they're coming through turn 5, a tricky corner, nose to tail. Obviously, blood is still up. They've both been at it in the previous corners. Nearly contact there as Avery tries to go wide and avoid him. But it's coming into turn 6, the turn after the turn 5 wagon wheel, as it's called at the circuit. And it seems that he looks to go down the inside, try and make some room. I suppose from looking at it, you can interpret it two ways. One, they're both having aero troubles and perhaps can't stop in time for each other. One stopping early, one stopping later. Obviously, no front aero means Richard Avery's having some trouble steering the car, and no rear aero means perhaps that Paul Grillo's having some trouble getting it breakdown and turned. They're having trouble at different parts of the corner. It could be a complete accident. It could be unfortunate and just a second natural conclusion to the initial contact. On the other hand, I'm holding my journalistic hand up here. It does look like it could have been a love tap.
And we do like a little bit of love tapping in this series, but at the same time, we like it to be clean as much as possible. We're just actually trying to see whether we can get a look with what happened to, I believe it was Simon Povey, who just didn't get going at all at the start of this race. So we're just having a quick look at that to see whether we can figure out anything that happened to him. And yeah, there you can see, Rachel, he just didn't go at all.
No, absolutely not. I mean, sitting there on the grid, it's probably the driver's worst nightmare. You're sitting there and suddenly everyone else is going and you're sat there, stopped. Not the best situation for him.
As you can see, very quick, thankfully, to get off track, but some of these drivers had to take some very big evasive action down on those first couple of corners. And again, that is that thing that you really never want to ever have happen to you, because it's just so scary, Rachel.
Absolutely. I mean, you're at the mercy of everybody else when you're sat there, unable to go anywhere. And he was starting fairly well up the grid. You know, he qualified in, I believe it was 4th place. So pretty damn good starting spot there for Simon Povey, but no movement at all. And it's just, so unlucky for him.
Now,
just trying to work out.
Go on.
Sorry. I was just saying, I'm just trying to work out watching the replay back now. I mean, he does seem it does cause a concertina, of course, as the car behind him, the green machine of, I think, Clark Williams, takes incredible evasive action to go around him. But looking actually at Simon Povey's car really close up as we're looking at the actual end of the race, start of the race even, sorry, his wheels are turning.
Yeah.
His wheels are turning, so he has control of the car, but perhaps there's an engine malfunction, a throttle problem, perhaps linkage between the pedal and the accelerator. It might have, something's broken because he's clearly got steering, but something else. So awful situation there for Sam Povey.
And then we had another car as well. I'm just trying to figure out who it was, who pretty much ended up somehow avoiding everyone and everything. I believe actually it was the 98 car of Clark Williams. He decided that he didn't want to do any racing. He just rather preferred to do a bit of off-road driving, Rachel.
Well, initially it started with him making a heroic dive out of the way of Povey's stricken machine. But of course, when that car ends up on the grass, not the easiest to get back on the track.
No, so having a look actually at Clark Williams to show you what happened to him with our super slow-mo camera. I think the big question of the day, judging by job how loose that car was at the end of today's race, had he not have had Avery and Adcock and everyone battling for position, the P2 in the early going, and just kept themselves cool, do you think Job would have still won this race?
I don't. I really don't. And now, credit to Sebastian Job, who won the race. He's won races before. He's a consistently good driver. It just seems that this season, I don't know why, but he seems to be giving it more than he needs to. He's pushing too hard sometimes. We saw at Barber Motorsports Park, he ended up losing positions because he made a very desperate move. He's good, but I don't think he's great yet because he knows he doesn't yet know the difference perhaps between how much to push and pushing everything. The man gives his heart and soul to the car. He drives his heart out, perhaps a little too much sometimes. This race, I think, if it hadn't been for the battling behind him, with how hard he was pushing and how difficult the car was getting at the end, I don't think he would have won.
But he does win, and he does a complete clean sweep. As a commentator,
Clean sweep.
As a commentator, I really should be able to actually get some words out of my mouth. But yes, he was able to get a clean sweep of both qualifying and the race yesterday, and fastest lap as well. He got that one by just a couple of 1,000ths of a second. And once again, some great racing up and down the field. And it's been one of those days, unfortunately, we really wish that we could have given a bit more air coverage to the guys outside of the top 10. But out front, until Love Tap Gate, as we're now going to christen it, it was that close in your battle for the top 5.
It was indeed, Will. I mean, that was manic up front, and they were back and forth. It is tough to kind of take the camera off something like that when you're seeing so much action up front and obviously inevitably leading to something like that. It's maybe when we get a nice processional race somewhere, we can focus the camera elsewhere. But the action was so thick and fast; it was hard to choose.
But what that does do, ladies and gentlemen, is it does unfortunately end our coverage here today of the Club UK and Ireland Skip Barber Championship here from the beautiful Summit Point, which I'd have to say, Rachel, I've become a bit more of a fan of today. You are allowed to talk here, you know.
Oh, I know. I just thought you could. That was a great sentence to lead out with. It was poignant, shall we say?
Yes.
Or
well,
pointed, in this case.
Pointed, poignant, any of the above.
Summit pointed?
Yes, Summit pointed indeed. Don't forget, we'll be back with more coverage, same time, same place, next Monday. Coverage, as always, starting at 7:45 GMT. And we've also got Friday Night IndyCars coming your way this Friday, as well as the debut of the FTC Black Cup. That will be this Thursday here on RaceSpotTV, as well as continuing coverage of the 16th Street Racing League. The ISWC might be done for the season, but that means it's full. It is time for the return of the greatest IndyCar Sim Racing Championship in the world, that is the 16th Street Racing League. Our coverage of that will start at 7:30 PM Eastern Time from Sebring International Raceway this coming Sunday. This has been a RaceSpotTV presentation of the Club UK and Ireland Skip Barber Championship here on RaceSpotTV. Myself, Will Vincent, and Rachel Whiteford. We'll talk to you all next time. Bye-bye.